What's up, everyone, and welcome to ClearTalk. So in today's video, we are going to be giving an update on what's going on over there, right? I mean, it's like it's crazy to me that we've had so much going on here the past few weeks about um about the election, the stuff going on with Trump, stuff going on with Biden, the presidential debate, all this talk, and about that has suddenly became clear to some people that Biden is too old. All this crap going on, and the focus on that has, for some reason, completely taken the focus off of, coincidentally, um, on Gaza and all the stuff going on over there. So what I wanted to do is kind of just go on some of the recent things that have been going on, because shit's still going on over there. I mean, people are still dying. Bombs are still being dropped. I mean, quite frankly, the status quo is still continuing even after the Security Council, what resolution and stuff. Like nothing's changed. Nothing has stopped. It's continuing to go on. Um, we've had uh talks start up again this week. I mean, I think they've been kind of going here and there over the past few weeks, but they've once again started up. Um, anyway, so we're going to go over some of the figures. We're going to go over some of the latest news, um, and all that good stuff. So, let me click over, swap, real quick. Oh, wrong, wrong thing to click. Here we go. All right. So this is the latest like numbers from the UN, from OSHA. Um, and take this with a grain of salt, because the problem is getting updates on this have just been trickle, and in some cases nothing. So currently, what is stated is 38,295 fatalities or deaths. 1.9 million displaced. There's only 2.1 million in the Gaza Strip. 495,000 people facing catastrophic levels of food insecurity. Um, the full blackout stuff here. So this is the latest like map. So as you can see, Israel has really the IDF has split quite a bit of this up. We All your previous like crossings and stuff have been closed, and they've been closed for a while, especially since they took over and invaded into Rafah here. The whole southern corridor there that was ran by Egypt, that has been closed. Um, the Rafah crossing here is closed. It's been closed since May the 7th. I think that's about the time that they did their invasion through there. They've created a couple of new crossings. The Kareem Shalom here, Gate 96 up here, and then the Erez, I don't know, west. So these crossings have all been created. Like these two up here, the Kareem Shalom and this one, E-West, have been done for pre-approved goods. So the goods and stuff that the IDF is allowing in, from trucks and stuff, that's been pre-approved by them. They are allowing them in through those gates. And then also the J lots, which is your joint logistics over the shore. So that little shore, um, what the platform that was built, which I think got destroyed, but I think they may have somehow been able to somewhat get that back in order. I'm not completely sure. But that opening is also accessible for humanitarian aid over the water. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much. And then they've got this. They got a military road split between these two. That's basically almost splitting the Gaza Strip in half, and then they've created this road going from the old crossing all the way down to the previous two old crossings. They created that road. I think if I'm not mistaken, throughout this, so that they can move along another military road. They can move along to basically have it split into four sections, and that's the way they're managing it. Uh, they are allowing some, apparently, some. Well, it is crossing for people here, but it's only humanitarian personnel across this crossing here. There's been no allowance of like actual Palestinians to live move across for like patients and stuff and need further care. That none of that's happening. It hasn't happened since May the 7th. Uh, so, like I said, the number is 38,295. Any identified has not been updated since April the 30th, though. So all these numbers are basically null and void. They had this is the date that they changed up all the numbers because they swapped from the Gaza Ministry or whatever to the Ministry of Health or something, and those numbers changed from the 14,000 or something children and whatnot to 7,000 something. But that number still has not changed since April the 30th because they have not been able to, I guess, get an update from the Ministry of Health out of Gaza. So, but people are continuing to die. People are continuing to get caught under rubble. There's just, but it's almost impossible with the situation going on there. People that were able to go and, or early on try to actually collect up information and data from people injured or for people that have passed, died or whatever from the conflict. But basically unable to do that because they either it's too um dangerous to do so, or they actually have been, caught up in the whole, been killed themselves, very likely. So right now is 96% of the analyzed population is projected to face crisis or worse levels of food insecurity. So the IPC 3 or above, 96%. 745 at phase 4, which is emergency levels, and then the catastrophic levels 495, which we stated before above. I mean, I don't know that any of this really, I'm sure this is all this information has continued to get worse. Uh yeah. But then, even though this data is here, we did get a stop. We did get a report from the Lancet just a few days ago, basically stating that potentially because of past like figures and stuff that they've used, percentages and stuff during conflicts that were figured up like after the conflict was done, when they were able to actually do figures and come up with like the people, the death tolls and injury tolls and stuff like that. Basically come up to a figure that potentially after this is, if it ended today, like it all just stopped today, that it would it could potentially, the numbers could be up to even at this point 186,000. If we read through this, uh, as of June 19th, 37,396 people were killed in the strip since the attack on October 7th. But the ministry's figures have been contested by Israeli authorities, even though they've been accepted as accurate by the Israeli intelligence services, the UN, and WHO. Collecting data has become increasingly difficult for the Gaza Health Ministry due to the destruction of much of the infrastructure, which is what we're basically what we're talking about. The minister had and has had to augment its usual reporting based on people dying in its hospitals or brought in dead with information from reliable media sources and first responders. This change has inevitably degraded the detailed data recorded previously. So that's the reason why death toll numbers have been uh, not completely going, getting along with each other, depending upon who they're getting it from. Some officials and news agencies have used this development designed to improve data quality, determine the veracity of the data. However, the number of related deaths is likely an understatement. The non-governmental organizations Airwaves undertakes detailed assessments of incidents in Gaza Strip and often finds that not all names of unidentified victims are included in the ministry's list. Furthermore, the UN established that by February 29th, 35% of buildings in the Gaza Strip had been destroyed, so the number of bodies still buried under the rubble was likely substantial, with estimates of more than 10,000. Armed conflicts have indirect health implications beyond the direct harm from violence. Even if the conflict ends immediately, there will continue to be more indirect deaths in the coming months and years from causes such as reproductive, communicable, and non communicable diseases. The death toll is expected to be larger given the intensity of this conflict, destroyed healthcare infrastructure, severe shortages of food, water, and shelter, the population's inability to flee to safe places, and the loss of funding to UNRWA, one of the very few humanitarian organizations still active in the Gaza Strip. And we all know that, Israel come out with that, um, trying to say that UNRWA was part of Hamas. They had members that were part of Hamas working for UNRWA, basically acting like UNRWA was supporting Hamas and all that kind of mess, which come back to be a lie. But in it, United States, which is the largest contributor to UNRWA, and amongst a few other countries, decided to cut their funding to UNRWA. A few of those countries afterwards uh, basically took that back and started to fund, help fund again, but the United States did not. We still are not currently helping to fund them at all, and they are the largest humanitarian organization in the Gaza Strip. In recent conflicts, such this is where we get to the nitty gritty for this. The recent conflicts, such indirect deaths range from 3 to 15 times the number of direct deaths. Applying a conservative estimate of 4 indirect deaths per one direct death to the 37,396 death toll, which is even at this point a low death toll, is not it is not implausible to estimate up to 186,000 or even more deaths could be attributable to the current conflict in Gaza. So using, the current in recent conflicts, the ranging from 3 to 5 times the number of direct deaths. So they're using just 4 indirect deaths for one. That's the most conservative number they could do. Um, puts puts the death toll potentially, it is not, to estimate up to 186,000 by the time this is over, or even if it ended right now. Using the 2022 Gaza Strip population estimate of 2,375,259, this would translate to seven. I don't know if that's supposed to be 7.9 or 7.29% of the total population in the Gaza Strip. At the time, in February 7th, at the time when the death toll was 28,000, estimated that without a ceasefire, there would be between 58,000 deaths without an epidemic or escalation, and 85,000 deaths if both occurred. So even on February 7th, when the death toll was 28, they were estimating estimations without a ceasefire was going to be between 58 and 85, and that was without well 58 without an epidemic or escalation, and 85 with both by August the 6th. So that number's continued to rise. There has been no major ceasefire since the one that we had for like 6 days or whatever it was. And escalation has continued. So yeah, that is a just disastrous estimate. And knowing all the ones that are up under, potentially up under the rubble that we can't, that can't be gotten to, can't be saved. And like I said, with what was it? What was the number again? 30%, and that was February 29th. It is way higher than that now. Buildings in the Gaza Strip. So, I mean, there's countless numbers of people that are buried up underneath rubble, and it's continued to we've continued to have things happen. Just I think just this week, in 4 days, there were 4 attacks on schools or buildings adjacent to schools or something, where people were actually trying to shelter, innocent people trying to shelter in 4 different locations across the strip. Each of them resulting in dozens of deaths. The last one was, I think, roughly 29 deaths, most of which were children. Just out of nowhere, bomb falls on a school for what apparent reason. And this was in all of these attacks were in zones that were, according to Israel, supposed to be safe zones. But they did it anyways. In 4 days, they had 4 attacks. I had a picture pulled up earlier, but I think I removed it, of each of where those were located. They also had a few days ago reported, I think it was 2 or 3 humanitarian aid workers that were captured in a group of Palestinians that were captured or whatever, taken hostage and put in a camp or whatever. I can't remember how it was. But those 2 humanitarian aid, they were taken. They weren't supposed to be taken, but they were taken on accident. They were released because they were taken by accident. They were released, and then immediately after they were released, going down the road or whatever, they were assassinated by the IDF. For what? Humanitarian aid workers taken, released, and then assassinated right after they're released by the IDF. I mean, it's just blatantly like just they don't care. They will do whatever they want, and it's ridiculous. But this is something I just ran across, and I haven't really even seen anybody talk about it. And this is in the New York Times, and I think this was yesterday or the day before. I can't remember. Anyways, apparently, Israeli generals low on munitions, wanting a truce in Gaza. That's the headline. So Israeli military leadership wants a ceasefire with Hamas in case a bigger war breaks out in Lebanon. Now we've had continued, striking and stuff, and continued, you know, increase in those strikes and stuff between Lebanon and between and Hezbollah and Israel since the beginning of this. And I think it was just last week or the week before where they had some pretty major escalation going on. So there's a continued risk and concern with a broader war breaking out with Hezbollah because they are continuing to push back on Israel because they are not stopping the stuff going on in Gaza and haven't, this whole time. So, security officials say it has also concluded that a truce would be the swiftest way to free hostages. Israel's top generals want to begin a ceasefire in Gaza, even if it keeps Hamas in power for the time being, widening a rift between the military and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has opposed a truce that would allow Hamas to survive the war. Like I said, we've continued, they've been continued talks, about trying to have ceasefires, whatever, and Netanyahu continues to come out against it, wanting these absurd uh, rules or whatever to happen for him to agree to a ceasefire that nobody would agree to. It's just, the generals think that a truce would be the best way of freeing the roughly 120 Israelis still held, but both dead and alive in Gaza, because we know some of the hostages most certainly have died because of all the bombing and other like situations and stuff, also hunger or whatever the case. Uh, According to interviews with 6 current and former security officials. Uh, Under equipped for further fighting after Israel's longest war in decades, the generals also think their forces need time to recuperate in case a land war breaks out against Hezbollah. The Lebanese militia that has been, locked in low level fight since October. A truce with Hamas would also make it easier to reach a deal with Hezbollah, uh, most of whom spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss sensitive matters. Hezbollah has said it would continue to strike North Israel until Israel stops fighting in the Gaza Strip. That has been the case since the beginning. They said as long as they continued fighting, they were going to continue bombing because they were trying to, make it difficult as possible on Israel, having two fronts to worry about. Known collectively as the General Staff Forum, Israel's military leadership is formed from roughly 30 senior generals, including the military chief of staff, Lieutenant General Herzi uh, Halevi, I don't know, the commanders of the um, Army, Air Force, and Navy, and the head of military intelligence. The military's attitude to a ceasefire reflects a major shift in its thinking over the past months as it become more clear that Mr. Netanyahu has refused to articulate or commit to a post-war plan. That decision is essentially created because he wants to keep the war going, because that keeps him in power. That decision has essentially created a power vacuum in the enclave that has forced the military to go back and fight in parts of Gaza and has already cleared it had already cleared of Hamas fighters. The military is in full support of a hostage deal and a ceasefire, according to Iyil Hulada, who served as Israel's national security advisor until early last year and who speaks regularly with senior military officials. They believe this is interesting, they believe they can always go back and engage Hamas militarily in the future, which is what Netanyahu on what's one of the agreements that he the only one stipulation that he has stated for allowing a ceasefire is basically for him to be able to go back, that it'd just be temporary, that he at any point can go back and start bombing the hell out of them. They understand that a pause in Gaza makes de escalation more likely in Lebanon, and they have less munitions, less spare parts, less energy than they did before. So they also think a pause in Gaza gives us more time to prepare in case a bigger war does break out with Hezbollah. So that is very interesting. They're running low on munitions, on spare parts, and of course on energy because they've been going now for months. This is going into the 10th month now. And that has to be taking a toll on the IDF. So, I mean, this is this is generals and leadership in the military releasing the fact that they are on board for a ceasefire. But Netanyahu keeps pushing against it. And of course, along with other major right wing, even further right wing, you know, powers in his cabinet and the war uh, cabinet or whatever that they made. So I just found that very interesting that you're having, you know, they you have military generals and stuff admitting that they are on board, you know, along with much of the public, on board with a ceasefire to get back hostages. I mean, their reasoning is to get back hostages and for them to kind of recuperate, basically, because they're afraid Hezbollah is going to escalate and make a broader war to the north, and they need to be able to. They're basically saying that they're not ready for that, which is interesting that this is even being said. It's not like Hezbollah can't get this information. um, but that shows that they do have weakness, and that weakness is being exploited right now. So I mean, I don't know. I know that and maybe this has something to do with the fact that they have started back talks this week. So I don't know. Maybe they are at a pinch point where they are at, you know, that they can't continue, or are they a ceasefire agreement they see the benefit in, but of course, you know, they won't agree to what Hamas wants. You know, there being a continuous ceasefire, they're not going to agree to that. Although they do admit that, you know, uh, having a ceasefire will actually allow them to work out an agreement with Hezbollah as well, because that's what Hezbollah's been saying all along. As long as you keep bombing Gaza, we're going to keep bombing you. And I mean, logic says, and we've been saying this for months now, if you just stop bombing Gaza, they'll stop bombing you. And you won't have to, you know, just stop. That's what everybody's been asking for. So I don't know. I just found that very interesting, and I haven't seen anybody talk about it. Maybe there has been, but I have not seen anybody talk about this report. Maybe it's too new, and nobody has seen it yet. But and just been too occupied with all the other mess going on. Reason why we haven't been hearing about all this to begin with. But anyways, um, I just wanted to bring a little bit up to speed on what's been going on. Like I said, the bombing is continued. People are still dying. Uh, the um, trucks and stuff getting across the border. Um, that was further down on this list. It's still trickling in. I mean, you see here May 94, June only 59 trucks. They did go back up 91 and 117 so far. Uh, Well, that's close to 200 this month. And this is all from humanitarian private sector. Well, that's humanitarian sector. Private sector is not known. So I mean, they are apparently being forced or pushed to allow more trucks in because this. I mean, it is just getting ridiculous. Uh, the humanitarian access has gone up the past couple months. Um, well, this is interesting. I didn't really read this before. Missions required coordination with Israel authorities. Withdrawn. We've had some withdrawn organizations cancel their facilitation requests due to logistics, operational, or security reasons. That looks like 17 of them, roughly. Denied. Israel Coordination and Liaison Organization, the CLA, is rejected or rejects facilitation requests. So we've had 8 of those. Rejections. Impeding. CLA accepts a facilitation request, but the movement is blocked or delayed on the ground, resulting in some missions being aborted or accomplished partially. So that's, I'm not sure that these numbers are really accurate for this. Well, I guess this is just for July. That's right. Okay, this is just for July. For the 9 days. So 98 have been successfully facilitated and not impeded. 98, so 21 and that's 30, 40, or 30 something have been impeded. 98 have not. 35, 36 of them, roughly, if I'm adding that correctly. Hmm. So, anyways, yeah, this stuff is still not getting in. Some, there's more getting in than not getting in, but when you had, before this conflict, 500 trucks a day, and you're not even having 200 in a, barely having 200 in a month. Uh, that shows why we have um catastrophic levels of food insecurity. And then yesterday, even or the day before, they or started requesting people to move out of Gaza City. So that was hundreds of thousands of people are being asked to move south and evacuate Gaza City again. Because as we know, previously there are some people who stayed in Gaza City, but then even after they moved south and the military moved south and continued, operations in Khan Yunis and Rafah and everything, they still, I mean, then you turned around and had Hamas just come back to Gaza City. They were, Israel was, saying that they had Gaza under control and they had it under their rule or their, whatever, military control. But then Hamas popped back up in Gaza and was, have been doing strikes and stuff like that on the military. And there's been, continued fighting in all these locations. I don't know if there's a part of that they're wanting to once again do a military operation in Gaza City and they're trying to evacuate people, which, at this point, nobody feels safe. So a lot of people are not going to evacuate because they're just like, what's the point? We've already moved once and came back, or we didn't move at all. We've continued to be bombed, so it doesn't matter. People in the south are continuing to be bombed. Safe places are being bombed. People are still dying. It doesn't matter. I mean, you know, so like, we're going to die, we're going to die. Anyway, but I wanted to give that update. And since it hasn't been talked about much, and I know it's been weeks since I even gave an update, so thank you for joining me, and I will try to, anything, the next any kind of major thing happen as far as Gaza is concerned, I will try to, or if it hasn't in the next week or two or whatever, I will try to give another update. But hopefully we'll be having something happen here of some significance. Hopefully before this week is over. I'm hoping, but anyway, thank you very much, and don't forget, like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you think, and let me know what you would like me to cover more of, or give more detail of, or whatever. Thank you very much, and until next time, JMD with ClearTalk. Later.